Hey, in this video I'm going to show you how to fix cracked and broken grout in tile in a bathroom. So we've been living in this house for about 2 years, and most of the grout is fantastic. There's no problems anywhere, but in this little shelf unit here in this shower, we've got some problems. As you can see, we've got grout that's kind of worn away as we just cleaned it with regular bathroom cleanings, and we've got other areas where the grout is cracked and kind of peeling out of the joint. And I suspect what happened when this shelf unit was installed, the installer didn't mix the grout with the proper amount of water. If you put a little too much water in, then the grout winds up shrinking a little too much as it cures, and you get flaking and cracking like this. So today I'm going to show you how to fix this. The first step is to clean the whole area. Just wipe it down with a damp sponge to remove all of the shampoo, soap, any of the residue that's left from anything, so you've got clean surfaces to work with. And then the next step is to remove the grout from the areas where it needs to be replaced, anywhere that it's worn down or cracked or chipped. So there's lots of different ways to get the grout out of the cracks. The cheapest way, probably, without requiring lots of expensive tools, is to just pick up a little handheld grout saw like this one. It cost me around $10 at the local big box store. And you can see it's got two different kinds of blades on it. The first here has some diamond dust embedded into the blade, and the other side has some serrated teeth like that there. Now I'm going to be removing the serrated blade and just using the diamond dust tip because my gaps are fairly narrow, and I don't think this will fit in with both blades on there, but you can certainly use both blades if you prefer. Then it's just a matter of using the saw to get down into that crack and remove all that grout. Alright, it took a lot of elbow grease, but I've removed the grout using that grout saw. So now I'm going to use a little handheld brush to brush out any of the extra dust that's left. Next, I'm going to use a very slightly damp, and I mean slightly damp, it's almost dry, sponge to wipe down the area. I don't want it to be very wet because I don't want to get a lot of moisture in those cracks because I'm almost ready to put in the new grout. Alright, I'm just about ready to start applying my new grout to replace what I've removed in my cracks. First, let me show you what these cracks look like now that they're prepped. As you can see, I tried to be very careful not to get onto the surface of the tile at all. I just removed the grout in between each of the pieces of the tile. And I went down as deep as I could until I started to feel the cement that is behind the tile instead. You can feel the texture change. The cement is significantly more difficult to get out than the grout. Okay, so now that I've got the grout all cleaned completely out and I've wiped down the area to make sure that there's no extra dust remaining, I'm ready to put the new grout in. Now, I'm using a particular kind of grout called Fusion Pro. That's only because that's exactly the grout that was used by the builder. And I'm doing that on purpose because I can match the color. That's the most important thing to me. If this winds up cracking again and I have to do this job every couple of years, that's not the end of the world to me. I hope it doesn't, and it's not supposed to, especially because I'm using the pre-mixed style here, so I know it has the right amount of water in it already, but I didn't want to have it miscolored, and so I went and made sure I got the exact same color that my builder used, so it will blend in seamlessly with the areas that I did not remove the grout from. Okay, so putting the grout in is pretty easy. You're going to want to use what's called a grout float. Again, if you don't already have one of these, they can be picked up for less than $10 at your local big box store. And you'll just want to get a little bit of the grout onto the corner of your float, and then you use that to push the grout down into those cracks. And you need to push pretty firmly. You want to make sure that that grout gets pushed all the way into the back of that crack. And you want to use diagonal strokes. That helps to work it down into that crack better. You want to keep your sponge handy, but not very wet. And as soon as you put grout into one area, lightly, very lightly sponge around that area to remove any of the extra grout that winds up on the surface. All right, I've finished applying all of the new grout, and now I've got a very lightly damp sponge that I'm just going to go over and wash off the surface, being careful that I don't put too much pressure on it. The reason is because the adhesive from the grout can get out onto the surface of your tiles, and if you leave that there, it'll cure and it'll have a kind of a haze that forms on the tile, and I'm going to try and avoid that. Now in your case, you may wind up with a haze that shows up, and they do sell special haze remover that you can use to remove that haze without damaging the grout you've just installed. When you wipe to remove the haze like this, you want to use a very light touch, a very dry, not completely dry, but just barely damp sponge. And you want to go at an angle. You don't want to run along your grout lines, you want to go across your grout lines. I'm going to go rinse off my sponge and we'll wipe it one more time. Alright, it's been nearly 24 hours since I put this grout in, and it's curing up nicely, and now is the right time to wipe off any haze that has formed on the tile. To do that, I'm going to be using this haze remover. Note that this is the non-cement kind because the grout that I used here is a non-cement grout. They make haze remover for the cement kind of grout as well, so just make sure if you're going to be using a haze remover product like this that you make sure it matches the kind of grout that you actually used. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of this into this rag, and then we're just going to wipe very, very lightly to remove any of the haze. I'm not using much pressure at all. You don't want to force this down into the grout. Just a very light wiping is all it takes. Alright, haze removed. Alright, well that's about it. This is a pretty simple job. If you've got a free afternoon, you can take care of correcting a little problem like this without too much trouble. The hardest part is removing the old grout, and that just takes some old elbow grease. But as you can see now, my grout lines look nice and smooth, and they're filled into the right height, and they match the color of the existing grout. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and now all I have to do is wait for the grout to cure so I can use this shower again. Well, anyway, thanks again for checking out this video. I hope you've learned a little something along the way with me, and if you did, and if you liked what you saw, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and ring that little subscribe bell if you want to see more videos like this in the future. And other than that, there's nothing else to say except thank you very much for watching.